Hello everyone, and welcome to our summer favourites at Kimmel Bay Church. My favourite minor character from the Bible that we're going to look at is Caleb. And let me tell you a little bit about him first. Caleb was a real can-do person. His glass was always half full, never half empty. And I suppose his name sums up what he's like. The name Caleb means faithful, wholehearted, brave, and devoted to God. He was the sort of man we'd all like to be. And you can read about him in Numbers chapters 13 and 14. The context first. The Israelites had escaped from Egypt and had arrived at the borders of the Promised Land. And Moses sent some spies, one from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, into Canaan to scout out the territory. And among them were Joshua and Caleb. And it was Caleb who was representing the tribe of Judah, the tribe that eventually Jesus came from. Now, this is what Moses said. He said, "Go up through the Negev and into the hill country and see what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak. See if they're few or whether they're many, and see what sort of land they live in. Is it good? Is it bad? What kind of towns do they have? Are they unwalled or fortified? And what's the soil like? Is it fertile or is it poor? Are there trees in the land or not? Oh, and by the way, do your best and bring back some of the fruit of the land." Now, when the spies returned, they all agreed on the richness of the land. It was an amazing place. But the rest of their reports were very different. 10 out of the 12 were very negative. They said that Israel couldn't possibly conquer the land because the inhabitants there were too strong and their cities were like fortresses. This is what they said. "We can't attack those people. They're stronger than we are. All the people we saw are of great size. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." They spread these bad reports amongst the Israelites, and as a result, people began to groan and moan against Moses, saying, "If only we died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is God bringing us to this land only to fall by the sword? Wouldn't it be better for us to find a new leader and go back to Egypt?" Fortunately, Joshua and Caleb were much more positive. Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes in frustration and anger and sadness and said to the entire Israelite assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only don't rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of those people, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone. The Lord is with us, so don't be afraid of them." Now, God's response to all the complaining and moaning was that he said that the Israelites couldn't go into the land. Instead, they would have to wander through the desert for 40 years until the entire generation had passed away. When Moses told the people what God had said, they were very sad. Sad because of the sins that they had committed in the way they moaned and complained against God. And they then made another big mistake. They decided they'd go in anyway and try and take the promised land in their own strength. A bit of a disaster because the Amalekites and the Canaanites were waiting for them and attacked them and defeated them. So, indeed, for 40 years, they had to wander through the desert. And finally, of the original people who left Egypt, only Joshua and Caleb entered the promised land. And when they did so in God's strength. And of course, the promised land was conquered. Joshua was the new leader, and he gave Caleb the territory around Hebron, the area belonging to the Anakites. So what can we learn from Caleb and his life? Well, I've picked out 5 key Bible verses that support what we can learn from him. If you get a chance, look them up. I find them a great encouragement to me. So, firstly, Caleb spoke up for the truth, even when he was in the minority. And often to stand up for truth, we might have to stand up alone, whether it's on our workplace or amongst the people we know. The verse I want to share with you is 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58. It says, "Therefore be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labour is not in vain." The second thing we can learn from Caleb, unlike the other spies who moaned and undermined the confidence of the people, Caleb remained positive and didn't complain. The verse I want to share with you is Philippians 2, verse 14. "Do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may be innocent and pure as God's perfect children in a world of corrupt and sinful people. You must shine among them like stars in the sky as you offer them the message of life." What wonderful words those are. Thirdly, Caleb knew the weaknesses of himself and the people, but he relied on God's strength. Isaiah 41 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand." Fourthly, he trusted God, knowing that God was able to do as he had promised. And Proverbs 3 verse 5 says, "Trust the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight." Unlike the 40 years in the desert, I suppose. And then Caleb knew that when God gave him a task to do, God would supply him with all he needs to complete the mission that he had. And Philippians 4 verse 19 says, "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus." So there we are, the story of Caleb, a cup half full man, a man who remained loyal to God, trusting in God when no one else did, who together with Joshua led his people into the promised land. So what we can learn is, stand up for what we believe. Don't moan. Rely on God's strength, not our own. Trust God to do as he'd promised, and God will provide all our needs. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great day. Bye now.